Welcome to Trivia Tangents, the podcast where we turn everyday passions into surprising trivia deep dives. I'm your host, Lena, and each week I quiz a friend or family member on something they know way too much about, turning everyday passions into trivia gold. We all know that on trivia night, the bigger the team, the better you'll play. That's why I bring the team together here on Trivia Tangents. Today's guest is my dad, who's here to talk all about chocolate. So get ready for some fun facts you'll definitely want for your next trivia night. Hi, Dad. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Lena. It's great to be here.
Good to see you. Where in the world are you today?
I'm in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro.
Oh my gosh. And we're recording 2 p.m. Pacific. What time is it there?
It is a quarter after 6 p.m.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And is that an Airbnb you're in?
Yeah, this is an Airbnb
Cool.
near the Copacabana beach.
Wow.
There's two big beaches here. This is
That's
Copacabana.
awesome. Yeah, so my dad, just to do a little introduction for those listening who probably don't know my dad, he's currently doing like a, digital nomad adventure. So the last year he's been in Latin America, basically, right?
Yeah, mostly in Latin America, a little bit of Europe for work.
So a little bit more of an introduction. My dad is a software engineer, entrepreneur, world traveler, fluent in Spanish, and currently learning Mandarin, right?
Yeah, and I also know Portuguese, which is useful here in Rio.
He is a chocolate maker and, of course, my dad. So today we are discussing all things chocolate. It was quite hard to narrow it down to 3 specific sections since there's so much history and science within the topic of chocolate itself. But today I have 3 sections. So 1, ancient chocolate origins, 2, chocolate's surprising health benefits, and 3, from bean to bar, the chocolate making process. So I'm really excited. Are you excited?
Yeah, I've been waiting for years to talk to you in depth about chocolate.
You're like, anyone who will listen, I'm ready to talk about the chocolate. Okay, are you ready for question 1?
Yeah, let's go.
Section 1, ancient chocolate origins. Trivia question 1. Which ancient civilization is believed to have been the first to cultivate and consume cacao? A, the Mayans, B, the Aztecs, C, the Olmecs, or D, the Incas?
It's definitely the Olmecs in Mesoamerica, and then it spread to the Mayans and Aztecs and later to the Incas, which are in South America.
Wow, good job. You're correct, obviously.
Which is interesting because the cacao itself originally came from Brazil.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh my
but they didn't
gosh.
figure out how to make anything useful with it until it reached up into Central America where the Olmecs were.
My gosh. See, I didn't even know anything about the Olmecs until I was writing this outline, and I was like, what are the Olmecs? So, yeah, clearly you know. Good job, 1 for 1. To give the listeners a little bit of a deep dive, mini deep dive here, the Olmecs, who lived in what is now southern Mexico from around 1500 BCE to 400 BCE, are thought to be the first civilization to domesticate the cacao tree. Archaeologists have found traces of the alkaloid chemical theobromine, which is present in chocolate, in Olmec pottery, indicating they were brewing cacao-based drinks thousands of years before the Aztecs and Mayans popularized it. Am I right so far? You're nodding your head. That sounds correct?
That sounds like everything that I've read. I mean, there is a lot of questions about it, but that's like the main story arc that everybody talks about.
Okay, good. Good to know I'm correct so far. My resource is the internet. So while Mayans and Aztecs both revered cacao, using it in ceremonial drinks and even as currency, it's fascinating to consider that the Olmecs may have paved the way for these later civilizations' cacao obsessions. Okay, cool. So now that we know a little bit more about the Olmecs, Dad, I have a few questions for you here. What do you think the earliest chocolate drinks would have tasted like compared to our modern hot chocolate?
Like licking the ground.
Like
It
mud?
was Yeah, in fact, some of when it started to become commercialized, they would cut it with dirt in certain places because you couldn't notice the difference.
When you say cut it, do you mean like mixing in dirt?
Hmm.
Ew.
That's what I read. Yeah,
Ew.
and bread or breadcrumbs or other things to dilute it because the cacao solids themselves were the most valuable part of it. And it wasn't until it reached Europe they figured out that if you put sugar in it, it tastes really wonderful. So the original cacao drinks in Mesoamerica had things like chiles to make it spicy, or they would mix it with different thickeners like cornmeals and that kind of thing.
So, not sweet and probably more savory and earthy tasting.
Very earthy.
Yikes. Okay, so since you've traveled a lot, have you
Mhm.
come across different uses of chocolate in various different cultures?
Yeah, I've seen chocolate used in different ways besides just the candy bars that we like. In Mexico, they have the mole sauce, which you could have like on an enchilada. Let's see. And another surprising one was in Brazil, where there's a very common pizza with chocolate. It's like a dessert pizza. So that's kind of strange. So those are a couple of the weird things I've seen done with
Interesting. I've seen a dessert pizza too. I think it was with Nutella. I haven't tried it though, because I was a little scared of it. Okay, another question for you. So, since you've traveled so much, in how many languages can you say chocolate?
Well, I personally can say it in maybe five different
Can
languages.
can you say it for us?
Okay, well, we have English, chocolate. Then we have Spanish, chocolate. Portuguese would be chocolate. In Thai, it would be chocolate. And then in Chinese, I think it's chocolate, chocolate, something like that. I
Hmm.
can't do the tunes yet, the tones.
Yeah.
What's interesting about the word chocolate is that in almost every language, it's got a clear lineage back to they believe it came from Nahuatl, one of the languages spoken in Mesoamerica.
Hmm.
The only language that I've ever found that has it kind of different is Finnish. So in Finnish, it's pronounced something like sukla,
Oh,
which
wow.
you can kind of feel that it had some of the
Hmm.
same consonants, but it's pretty different. So it's an interesting word where it's very universal. Like the word mom, mama, is almost
Hmm.
every language has that same word,
Hmm.
and same as chocolate.
Yeah, that's so cool. I know I'm taking Italian right now, and I know Italian is cioccolato.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, I know in the little deep dive I mentioned theobromine. Does that ring a bell to you? You're like, yeah, I know what that is. Okay.
yeah, for sure. The fruit of the gods.
Oh my gosh, fruit of the gods. So, how does the presence of theobromine influence the chocolate making process and flavor balancing?
Hmm, you got me a little bit stumped there. I mean, it's when I'm making chocolate, I'm not necessarily into the chemistry like an electron microscope, thinking about how the theobromine
Yeah.
is influenced. I mean, the only chemical thing that I think about when I'm making chocolate is overheating it to destroy
Hmm.
the antioxidants. But the theobrom, well, the other thing is that chocolate has something like 1,000 different chemical compounds that actually give it its flavor,
Oh,
which,
really?
as compared to the flavor of cherry, apparently it's just one chemical compound. I didn't get very far in chemistry, so I don't know if those are all factually correct, but those are some of the things I remember reading about the chemistry of chocolate.
From what I've seen on the internet, from my very, very limited research here, it seems like theobromine gives a sort of bitter taste. So I
Hmm.
guess, have you experimented with like adjusting sort of bitter notes in your own homemade chocolate?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different flavors you can get, and you're reminding me of one of the things that I used to teach in my little chocolate workshop before the pandemic the difference between bitterness, acidity, and astringency, because these are three important flavor profiles in chocolate. A good way to remember these three differences is that bitterness is like grapefruit, acidity would be like lemon, and astringency would be like unripe banana. You know, like when you bite into a banana and it makes you want to go like this sound with your tongue.
Yeah, it's like a dry sort of feeling.
Yeah, astringency. So those are three words that are helpful in talking about dark chocolate because different beans from different parts of the world, different varieties, depending on how it's grown, they're all going to exhibit different elements of bitterness, acidity, and astringency. And it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to remember the difference. So just think grapefruit, lemon, and unripe banana.
Yeah, that's so hard to remember. And then I got all confused because, like, there's a fruit called a pomelo, which is
Mm-hmm.
a grapefruit mixed with an orange. So it's like the acidity and the other thing that you just mentioned.
Bitterness.
Yeah, bitterness and
Mm-hmm.
acidity.
Yeah.
Anyways, little tangent there, but welcome to Trivia Tangents. So, yeah, you mentioned in that little discussion something about health benefits. So, that's actually a great segue into section 2. Section 2, chocolate's surprising health benefits. Trivia question 2. Dark chocolate is known to have health benefits thanks to which group of compounds? A. Anthocyanins. B. Saponins. C. Carotenoids. Or D. Flavonoids.
Yeah, so it's definitely flavonoids, which are antioxidants. And don't ask me which ones, because apparently there are several different kinds of
Oh,
flavonoids. But
really?
yeah, that is one of
Okay.
that is what I do remember.
Wow, good job.
Thank you. And we can also talk a little bit about how antioxidants work. So feel free to double click on that if you're interested.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe I can get through my little deep dive, and then if I miss anything, you can definitely touch up on it. So, a little deep dive here on flavonoids. So, flavonoids are an antioxidant rich compound found in cacao. They're known for their potential heart health benefits. According to Abby Langer, which is a nutritionist in Toronto, quote, these compounds have been shown to have health promoting properties such as lowering the risk of cognitive decline, protecting cardiovascular health, and lowering levels of inflammation. End quote. However, most of these benefits are tied to dark chocolate, so with at least 70% cacao, because milk chocolate has much less cacao and then therefore fewer flavonoids. This also makes for a great argument for why the darker the better, quote unquote, when it comes to chocolate's nutritional perks. According to The Chocolate Professor, which is a blog all about chocolate, and I'll definitely link it below because it's very interesting, these are the bars that they recommend for the combination of flavanol bang and their flavor profile. So, very antioxidant rich and also quite tasty. They recommend these two bars. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing it right. Hinde and Vera Pear of Ecuador, 100% black bar, which is Ariba cacao from Hacienda Victoria Estate. And then 2, Havana Chocolate's 90% Polo Chic dark chocolate, which is cacao from Guatemala's Polo Chic Valley. Hopefully, I pronounced all that right. Correct me if I'm wrong. To wrap up that little deep dive there, the way I remember flavonoids is because it kind of has that word flavor, and chocolate's
Mhm.
very flavorful. So it's like, okay, I don't think I'll ever forget this trivia question because chocolate, flavor, flavonoids, antioxidant. There you go. So, was there anything from that I missed? Like anything else about antioxidants that you'd want to sprinkle in there?
Yeah, the antioxidant stuff was kind of interesting when I learned about it. One of the ways I learned about it was with ChatGPT. I asked it for a description that Richard Feynman would give. Richard Feynman is a very famous physicist from Caltech who was famous for his ability to explain things very, very clearly. And when I read it, it just all made sense. So this is what I learned about how antioxidants help your body. We all know that our cells need oxygen, and sometimes when they're processing the oxygen to make energy, there's some kind of like, you could call it misfires, some exhaust, and some of the oxygens lose an electron. Then they become what's known as free radicals. And I don't want to get too far off topic, but another tangent we could get into is we could get into the etymology of the word radical, which is kind of interesting. But let's just say that we have oxygens that are missing an electron,
Yeah.
dioxygen, two oxygen. So they're unstable. They want to go find an electron. They go around in your body, and if they hit one of the important cells in your body, they'll just go ahead and steal an electron from it. And that's where you start to get deterioration, and particularly in your heart. It could start to allow plaque to build up from calcium deposits or fat and that sort of thing. So antioxidants come to the rescue. And what antioxidants do is they willingly give an electron to the free radical. But what's really unique about antioxidants is that even though the antioxidants lost an electron, they don't become unstable. And I dug into it a little bit more. I thought, well, is that just because they have an extra electron to spare? And it's not because of that. It's because of their structure. They do lose an electron. Unlike other molecules, they just don't become unstable. And the reason for that is because their structures often involve rings, and somehow that allows the loss of the electron to sort of just very naturally balance itself out. Even though it's missing an electron, it's able to withstand that and not become a free radical itself. And it neutralizes the whole thing. So the more antioxidants you have in there, the more free radicals you can neutralize, preventing those free radicals from damaging your tissues.
Yeah.
That's what I learned.
Wow, that's a lot. And you just said didn't get that far in chemistry, but it seems like very chemical there.
Thanks to Richard Feynman's ChatGPT rendition of what are free radicals.
Wow, very cool. And I guess, yeah, chocolate has antioxidants, blueberries, matcha. What else? Those are the three that come to mind.
Mm-hmm. But as far as I read, chocolate has more than even blueberries. As long as you don't... That's what I read.
Cool. Oh, goji berries, maybe? Just sounds like everyone could use some extra electrons. So, okay, getting back on chocolate here. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, you prefer the taste of dark chocolate, right?
It's
Is that
not
right?
even chocolate if it's not dark to me.
Okay. So then I guess, duh, do you probably prefer making dark chocolate versus milk chocolate?
Yeah, I have made milk chocolate just so that I could understand how it's made, and it's kind of a remarkable innovation that came out of, I believe, Switzerland. You can't just pour milk into chocolate; it will seize up and make ganache. So you have to make it the right way by dehydrating the milk first. So it was interesting to me from an innovation standpoint, but no, I don't like it at all.
Okay, so tell me your thoughts on white chocolate, no cacao at all.
Well, most people who like dark chocolate don't like white chocolate, and you could include me in there, but it is interesting to think about what white chocolate is. I don't think there's a lot of like hard and fast standards about it. So you could do lots of things with it. One of the interesting things about the cacao bean is that it's about half cacao solids and half cacao butter.
Oh, the jelly part? The jelly part is the butter?
If you're referring to the kind of fruity part of it, like the outside that's white, no, that actually is not the cacao butter. The cacao butter is in the cacao seed itself. So if you're looking at a cacao seed, it's about the size of an almond, a little bigger, and it's
Hmm.
very dark. So when you look at it, all you think is the cacao solids. That's the thing that gives the very earthy flavor or the fruity flavor. But what's interesting is that that bean is about half cacao butter. And in Amsterdam, they figured out how to extract all of that oil by heating it and pressing it. And what's left is just the cacao solids. Then they can make chocolate milk out of it, for example. Sometimes
Oh,
they'll
wow.
alkali, I don't know if I got that verb right, but they'll make an alkali version of the cacao solids at that point, and then it combines, dissolves more easily in milk. But what about this whole other half, this cacao butter? You
Yeah.
can use that to make the white chocolate. White chocolate would be fundamentally cacao butter, but then you could add sugar to it, you can add milk solids to it, and then that
Oh.
allows you to experiment with it. So what's really interesting for me when I learned this is that in that little cacao seed, you have two very, very important parts of chocolate. And one of them, the dark part of it, called cacao solids, that's where you get almost all the flavor. But what's this cacao butter for? It's what gives you structure for a nice chocolate bar.
Hmm.
And so then you can innovate in different ways. Like white chocolate is no cacao solids, just cacao butter. But then imagine you could take cacao butter and you could add other flavors to it, just like mint or rose. And you could make a cacao, you could make a chocolate that doesn't have any chocolate solids in it. So those are the two
Wow.
things that you get structure from the cacao butter and you get flavor from the cacao solids. I just thought that was so interesting when I started learning
Wow.
about chocolate making.
Yeah, that is so interesting. For some reason, I was under the impression that white chocolate was just milk and sugar. So
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna like go off and be like, I hate white chocolate. I can't even believe it's regarded as chocolate. But it turns
Yeah.
out, I guess they use part of the cacao bean, which is the cacao butter.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
Very.
And when you look at these measurements of like 70%, 80% dark chocolate, I began to wonder like who's really enforcing these standards? Because you could take a pure cacao butter and make a bar out of it.
Yeah.
And to me, I started wondering, well, isn't that 100% chocolate? It's not 100% dark chocolate, but it's 100% cacao. So,
Right.
yeah, I don't know who's really enforcing all of
Oh my
these
gosh.
definitions.
That's so interesting. I wonder if they are held to the same standard as, like, for example, like wine labels. They have to list where it was like cultivated, where it was processed, all these things. And like if they have a certain classification, it has to go through all these different tests. So I
Hmm.
wonder if chocolate is the same way. But I know the chocolate industry has gone through so many controversial things. So that kind of makes me think like maybe they don't have specific standards or like conventional naming systems in place, but or maybe the other way, like maybe they do to try and like make things better from those controversial times. I have no idea. I That's not in this episode. So I guess we'll have to find out later.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot of things to worry about when you're consuming
Yeah.
chocolate. You got to worry about whether they employed child labor or slave
Mm-hmm.
labor in the growing of the cacao.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to worry about contaminants, whether they use different pesticides if you want something organic. And organic is a nice, very clean standard that's enforced. To be able to say it's organic, you have to go through rigorous testing. And then in the production of it, there's things like, there's a drying step, and in certain countries, to dry it, they'll need a piece of land to do that. And if that land is just too close to a road, you can have exhaust that is getting into the cacao beans. So
And then they'll
they're
be like,
definitely,
this cultivation, this batch has a smoky flavor.
yeah, I detect some tractor.
Notes of tractor. So, what are your favorite high level cacao bars or blends that you've made with your own beans?
Well, I'd say that some of my favorite, well, one of my favorite brands is Cho Chocolate. That was a brand in
Yeah.
San Francisco. And San Francisco's got a whole history of chocolate, which is fascinating. And I think it's
Yes.
because, yeah, I think it's because chocolate can be manufactured there in the right temperature ranges because the bay and the ocean around San Francisco helps keeps it very stable. So you've got Ghirardelli that was there. Also, you have access to the ocean, so the beans coming up from South America could
Mm-hmm.
be delivered easily. And then when you've made it, it stores without melting.
Yeah.
There's Ghirardelli, there's Cho, there's
Dandelion.
Dandelion.
Yep.
There's another very famous one.
Yeah, there's so many chocolate places around here. Like for one of my team offsites, we went to Dandelion and did like a chocolate making experience, and we got to do a tour in their whole factory, which was pretty cool.
In the San Francisco area, you have famous brands like Ghirardelli and Scharfenberger and Dandelion. But the OG for me was Cho Chocolate, TCHO. They're the ones who really got me to understand that there's different flavor profiles of different dark chocolate. It's not all about the percentage of cacao. It also has to do with where it was grown. What variety was it that was grown there? There's like at least three different varieties of cacao. So I like Cho chocolate just because of it. It introduced me to this idea. And then one of the types of chocolate that I like a lot is Madagascar. They have a very, very fruity variety of bean there, which is very nice. And then in Peru, I believe, there's a very nutty one. I think it's called it's actually a
Mm-hmm.
white bean,
Mm-hmm.
and so the chocolate comes out being a very light brown color, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
nutty. It's delicious. Other cacao beans are very, very deep purple. And then I don't know if you've
Whoa.
heard about it, but they've discovered a completely new variety of cacao that is called ruby.
Huh.
It makes ruby cacao, ruby chocolate, and it's pink and it's beautiful. I haven't had too many chances to eat it yet, but it's pretty intriguing.
Wow, that's so cool. I have never ever heard of that. That's so cool. The part that you brought up about it, one of the beans being nutty, that kind of reminded me that, most people don't know that the cacao bean is not a nut. It's a fruit, right?
Yeah, it's something that I've looked into, trying to get like a really detailed understanding of what is a nut, because a lot of the things we pop in our mouth that are called nuts, maybe they're not nuts, because as I understand it, a nut is an edible seed, and so that would rule out which things that we call nuts. Wal, yeah, there's certain things that we call nuts,
Walnuts,
corn nuts.
pecan, corn nuts, pecan nuts, peanuts.
Yeah, some of them.
Yeah, so many.
But if it's an edible seed, then, well, that's what a cacao seed
Huh.
bean
So
is.
maybe
So
it is a nut, but it has like a
maybe it is
fruity
a nut.
flesh.
Or it just exhibits different flavor qualities.
Huh.
Uh, I want to give you this quote that I came across while I've been contemplating this question. Is it a nut? Is it a fruit? What is it? It's from Claude Monet. Claude Monet
Okay.
says, "To see, we must forget the names of things we are looking at."
Profound.
It is. It's giving me goosebumps just remembering the first time that I really experienced this when I was making chocolate. And I was being very careful not to let any water drip into my chocolate. Because if you get water in chocolate, it seizes up and then you've got to make kind of ganache, but you're not going to be able to
Mm.
temper it very easily to make a nice bar.
Hmm.
So I'm making chocolate and I'm noticing that it's getting so hot that steam is coming off of it. And I thought, I don't want that steam to drip back into my chocolate. But wait a minute. Why do I see these billowing uh, clouds of steam? Why would there be water in cacao? And then it dawned on me, oh, it's because it's fruit. Fruit's got liquid in it. And then my whole world shattered. Because I tell you, Lena, up until that moment, if I were to walk into a grocery store, if I wanted fruit, I would go to the fruit section. If I wanted chocolate, I would go to the candy aisle. These were completely different areas of the store in my mind. But when I saw that billowing cloud of steam coming off the chocolate, I started to feel what Monet was trying to tell us, is that the names of things are not the things. We've introduced
Wow.
language to classify the world,
Yeah.
and it sometimes blinds us from what's really there. It was even one of the most profound moments in my life when I figured this out experientially in meditation
Mm-hmm.
and was just examining who am I? And
Yeah.
you know, I thought, well, if I were unfortunate enough to like lose a hand or something, and the hand was sitting on the sidewalk over there, and the rest of my meat was over here, I certainly would say this is me, not the hand. And so I just
Yeah.
did this, yeah, I just did this exercise. I divided and I dissected. Where am I? And I came to this little point behind my eyes, and I said, no, well, it's actually kind of moving around. Sometimes I feel I'm over here. Sometimes I feel I'm over here. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm the voice in my
The
head.
soul.
Yeah, is my voice my soul? But then after I asked that question, Lena, the voice paused for a moment. There was no voice, but I was still here. And so my whole world came shattered. It was just shattered because all of this time in my life, I thought me, Michael, was a thing. And then in that moment, I realized that the language I had been using all my life to understand things, whether it was chocolate versus fruit or me versus the rest of the universe, none of that stuff exists. It's language that traps us in a lot of
Yeah.
cases. And like Monet said, to see, we must forget the names of things we are looking at. And when you
Yeah.
ask me something like what kind of chocolate I like, this comes to mind because I've realized that through eating chocolate, no two bars of chocolate are the same. In fact, no two bites of chocolate are the same.
Wow.
First bite of chocolate, gives me one rush and, tingles through my body and makes my mouth happy. And then the subsequent bites they're just not the same.
Like diminishing returns?
Well, diminishing returns, but also that the entire idea of sameness is a
Mm-hmm.
mental construct. There's no
Wow.
two things that are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Because if they were the same, they'd be the same. They wouldn't be different.
Oh my God. Wow. That was like a philosophy lesson. And it made me think of a lot of different things. I feel like I would have understood Monet's quote if it, instead of the word see, it was understand. You
Mm,
can understand things once you remove the name. And I
yeah.
think you're totally right. Language is basically what helps us to identify things and put them in different buckets so that it's easier to like talk about things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it only belongs in that bucket.
Yeah. So many
Yeah.
philosophical debates are just about this person thinks the word means this thing, and the other person thinks it
Yeah.
means this other thing. But really, I think what Monet was trying to teach us is that the whole idea of classifying and language and names and sameness, that's all a human phenomenon.
All these things existed before we had language, basically.
Exactly.
These things would still exist even if we didn't have language to
Exactly.
describe them. So, if you had to put it very simply, are you saying cacao beans are both a fruit and a nut?
For me,
Okay. Interesting. Wow. Amazing. Slightly related, but not. I got lychees from Trader Joe's and I always thought they were fruits, but on the box they're labeled lychee nuts. So I'm like, mind blown because I'm not eating the seeds, I'm eating the flesh around it. So similar but different. Section 3, from bean to bar, the chocolate making process. Are you ready for trivia question 3? So far, you're 2 for 2. During chocolate production, which step is responsible for developing the chocolate's complex flavors and reducing bitterness? A. Conching. B. Grinding. C. Tempering. Or D. Molding?
It's actually E, roasting.
What? I'm
Conching,
wrong?
well, conching definitely can help release some of the volatile compounds that make it kind of acidic or astringent. But most of the
Yep.
flavor development actually happens during, well, the fermentation. Actually, I should say fermentation and roasting, those, and then conching. Those are
Yeah.
the parts of the process that most develop the flavor. And the reason I know this is because I've done experiments where I've left some of those steps out.
Okay.
And for example, if you don't ferment the bean, it's going to be even hard to make chocolate in the first place.
Yeah.
But it's going to taste like, like peas. It's going to taste like a vegetable.
Oh. So is chocolate a vegetable? I'm joking. Okay, well, back to the trivia question. Out of the multiple choice answers I gave you, which one
So
would you
you
pick?
said, you said, well, conching caught my attention. What were the other three?
Yeah, conching is correct, so good job. But I
Okay.
guess you're probably more correct because you're the expert, but that's what I found from the internet. The other ones were grinding, tempering, and molding.
Well, I would also put in a plug for if those are the only options you're going to give me. First, conching because it releases
Yes.
volatile compounds that make it bitter or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in my own experience, tempering also can affect the flavor simply because if you have an overly tempered piece of chocolate, it's just not going to melt quickly enough in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to melt in order for the flavor compounds to penetrate the parts of our tongue and our olfactory organs to let
Yeah.
us experience the flavor. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I would say that as well. So,
Tempering, tempering, and fermenting.
number one, fermenting. Number two, roasting. Number
Okay.
three, conching.
Okay.
And then tempering,
Okay. Got
in
it.
my opinion.
Amazing. Good to know. I obviously I'm not the expert here, so thank you for calling me out on that. So we all
I
learned
would
something new.
I wouldn't call myself an expert either. There's definitely a lot of experts that I pay attention to, but I'm more of a hobbyist.
Okay, well, you're definitely more practiced than me. I do have a bonus question. I know you probably didn't see this coming, but who invented the conching method? A. John Cadbury, B. Rodolphe Lindt, or C. Domenico Ghirardelli?
Well, it wasn't Domenico Ghirardelli because I believe he was in San Francisco, and last time I remember reading about conching, it was invented in Europe. So it's either going to be Cadbury, which I believe is British, or Lindt. And Lindt, I recently read what was his innovation. Well, I'm gonna guess Lindt.
You're correct. Good job.
Okay.
Cool. Well, I know the answer for the original question was actually fermentation, but I did my research on conching. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that.
All right.
So, conching is a critical step in chocolate making invented by Rodolphe Lindt in 1879. In this process, the chocolate is continuously mixed and aerated at a warm temperature. This intense mixing smooths the texture, reduces acidity, and releases volatile compounds, resulting in chocolate's rich, well rounded flavor. Conching can last anywhere from a few hours to several days, depending on the desired outcome. And it's fascinating how even slight tweaks in this step can dramatically change the final product. Like my dad said, he's experimented taking out different steps in the process and seeing how that changes the flavor. Have you ever played around with the length of conching to see how it affects the flavor and texture?
Definitely. And that relates to my chocolate making method where I I don't really use the traditional home chef equipment because I don't like to be burdened by having to buy and own things. So one time for Grandma's birthday, I decided I would try to make her dark chocolate, and I wanted to do it with as little equipment as possible. So I decided I would try to use one of our blenders. Remember, we had a Blend Tech and a Vitamix, and I used to like to do
Yes.
competitions between them.
Yeah, which
So
one was
I,
better?
yeah, so for chocolate making, probably could use either. I was very proud of this because there's a famous chocolate maker out there who found a post online where he said you cannot make dark chocolate with a blender, and so I took that as a challenge to figure out how to
Yeah.
make it with my Vitamix, and I was successful. I think. Do you remember eating any of the chocolate that I
I
made?
yeah, I remember eating a lot of the chocolate that you made. I think I remember this specific instance, and I think you delivered it in a plastic tin, a plastic like to go sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that's the exact instance, but did it taste good?
Yeah, I think I was able to get chocolate that was pretty decent.
Nice.
And the Vitamix would serve multiple functions. It would grind the nibs down, which is usually it's its own machine.
Hmm.
Um, then refine it, turn it from a nib into the chocolate liqueur, which is ground up chocolate that's liquefied. And
Yeah.
then I'd use it for conching as well. And I would just use a very low speed. And I played around with doing it, not doing it at all, and then doing it for, 3 hours.
Okay.
In which case I ended up having to buy a few different Vitamixes
Oh my
after
god.
it took some time to learn how to make chocolate in a Vitamix without burning the motor. But
Oh
yeah,
my
it's
gosh.
possible.
Okay, cool. Wow. Lots of experimentation going on there. So, at home, how long does it take to make a piece of chocolate? And then in a factory, how long do you think it takes to make a piece of chocolate? Like from bean to bar for both of those situations.
Well, the way I'm going to answer that is if it's a race and I have to make chocolate as fast as possible, bean to bar at home, and I'm starting with fermented beans that have been imported. It was a competition. I could make chocolate in 4 hours.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah,
that's if the beans were already fermented.
if they're already fermented.
Yeah.
Now, there is some variability in how long you could ferment, but usually it's going to take, I would say, at least 2 days,
Wow, okay.
usually more like 5 days. And then you got to
Cool.
grow the bean. You can't,
Yeah.
it takes 4 years for a seedling cacao to begin bearing fruit. So what producers a lot of times do is combine their crop with something like banana, which starts to produce very quickly, and it also provides some shade for the cacao trees. And then
Mm-hmm.
4 years into it, they can start fermenting beans.
Wow. Okay. So fastest from already fermented bean to bar, 4 hours.
Yeah,
Very fast.
it probably wouldn't win a taste competition, but I could
I'm
make it.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure. You can't rush good tasting, good quality chocolate. And in your opinion, what do you think is the most challenging part of chocolate making overall?
This one's good enough to be a trivia question.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so maybe can I turn it into a trivia question for you?
Sure. I just thought it was more of like an opinion, but go ahead.
There's a pretty clear answer. So, Lena, which of these steps in chocolate making do you think is hardest to master? Roasting, refining, tempering, or packaging?
I think tempering.
And why do you say that?
Okay, the reason I think tempering is because from what I've seen in like cooking shows or dessert shows or even chocolate specific competition shows, temper is kind of what either makes or breaks someone's chocolate.
Absolutely. And the very common joke around chocolate people is that you lose your temper.
Well, that's funny, actually.
It's so frustrating. The one redeeming quality of this step of the process is that you can redo it.
Mm.
Unlike roasting, if you mess that up, better just toss your beans. If you burn them, you can't unburn them. But with tempering, it's a physical process that just depends on the temperature. So if you get your temperature profile or your cooling and heating profiles wrong and it turns out incorrect, you can just do it over. So it's got that redeeming quality to it. But it's hard, very hard.
Wow, that's good to know. That's good to know. All right, and then I have one final question for you on chocolate. Let's say someone wants to start making chocolate at home. What advice would you give to that someone who wants to start making chocolate at home? Like where to buy ethically sourced beans, or yes, equipment or tools, etc., stuff like that.
Well, I would say that there's so much variety that it depends on what the person's interested in. For me, I really wanted to learn the whole thing and do
Mm-hmm.
it with no equipment or as little equipment as possible. You know, so much of chocolate process has developed over the last 2 to 4 thousand years, and some of it was discovered by accident, and some of it may have been introduced because somebody thought they should write a book about it. So I wanted to
Right.
find out like what you really need to make it. And what I discovered is it can be made with a high-end blender, contrary to what one guru thinks. But one of the ways that I had to refine my own procedure to get it to be smooth enough is I introduced a metal coffee filter.
Hmm.
Because after I've ground it and refined it with a high-end blender, it still might have some grittiness in it. So I just pass it through a standard coffee filter made out of metal, and then that ensures that it gets the particle size down to, I believe it has to be less than 10 microns or 20 microns in order
Mm.
for our tongue not to perceive any grittiness. So that was one $10 improvement to the process that I would recommend if your goal is to figure out how to make it with minimal
Wow.
equipment.
Wow. Very cool. And then what about like ethically sourced beans?
To get ethically sourced beans, there's websites that specifically promote that. We can put some in the show notes. The Chocolate Alchemist or Chocolate Alchemy is one. That's the guy I was telling you about who said you can't make,
Oh my gosh.
you can't make. But so the owner of Chocolate Alchemy claimed that you can't make chocolate with a blender. So I disagree with him on that, but I do agree. I do think he has a very good website for cacao. And then there's, I think, Uncommon Grounds is another one. But if
Mm.
you search specifically to find ethically sourced beans, that's going to be something that they're going to be very prominent about.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to be sure, you could be like me and go directly to places in Honduras or Ecuador, Brazil, Indonesia, Côte d'Ivoire. I don't know if I said that correctly.
Where's that?
Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. Um,
Oh,
it's
okay.
on that little hook, the hook end of West Africa.
Yeah,
That's
I've
where
heard of that.
I think it's more than 40% of the production of cacao is from there. Even though the
Oh,
original bean was from Brazil, Africa is the biggest producer.
maybe it just grows better there.
Yeah. And South America, by contrast, is the biggest producer of coffee. So these
Which was
beans
originally found in Africa.
in Africa, so these beans hopped
Yeah.
the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh my gosh, how funny. Okay, awesome. Well, let's take it to the conclusion wrap up. Okay, Okay, Dad. So that wraps up my 3 sections here today. You basically knew everything I was talking about already, but was there anything that you really enjoyed talking about during this chat?
Well, I'm trying to think of an answer that doesn't have to do with just getting to spend time with my favorite one of two people on Earth, you and your brother.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
I really can't. Well, I guess getting to talk to one of my favorite people about one of my favorite subjects was the
Wow.
highlight of my year, probably.
Oh my God. Okay, cool. And then, did you have fun? And if you were to be a guest again, what do you think you'd want to be quizzed on?
Well, I would love to be on your show again, of course. And I have like 20 trivia questions I've been waiting to give you about Latin America, which will be
Oh
fun.
my God.
You could also quiz me about probably meditation, veganism, artificial intelligence. Those are some
Hmm.
topics I might not get as many answers right as with chocolate, but
Yeah.
I could try my
Yeah.
best.
Could be entertaining nonetheless. Thank you for listening to the show. This is Trivia Tangents, where we cover various trivia topics. We have new episodes released every Thursday, which I like to call Trivia Thursday. I'm Lena, and special thanks to my dad for sharing his awesome insights and trivia tangents about chocolate with us. Make sure to keep an eye out for next week's episode, all about Freaky Friday, just in time for Freaky Friday 2. Freakier Friday, I think it's called. Thanks for listening!
And learning.
If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating or thumbs up, follow or subscribe, and share with a friend. For bonus content, you can find Trivia Tangents on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, all podcast platforms under Trivia Tangents Podcast. Check out our website at triviatangentspodcast.com to purchase trivia starter packs based on these episodes. Perfect for hosting your very own trivia night.